go. We'll meet Brian Manzella. He's a good egg. He's a big Saints fan too. We're all Saints fans in this.
Hey, man, hey, I was there last night, bro.
They looked good last night, didn't they? What do you think about Rattler? All right, here we go. We're about live.
It's not more boring than Derek.
All right, here we go. So start recording. All right, so joining me here on the tour coach. It's been a little while since we've done this. We haven't done it, but we haven't done a live one. And this is new for us. Hold on, let me get this real quick. I got this thing going in the background. Let's see here. I'm getting that off so I don't have. There we go. Now we're good. All right. There we go. Now we're good. All right. So haven't done a live one here. We've been doing more and more of this on our YouTube as our YouTube grows. But one of the great teachers in the game, Golf Digest Top 50, Golf Magazine Top 100. You could say he's polarizing. He's controversial. But I will say this before we get into that. He's a genuine person. And he's as good as gold. If you call him and ask him a question, he'll always call you back. And we were talking about off the air, all I could ever go by. We said this is how he treats you. And we're both Saints fans. And before we get into the golf, what do you think about Spencer Rattler?
I don't know what kind of personal problems he had, like right. He had some, right?
Yeah.
He was one of the best players in the country coming out of high school. He played like a wizard when he was at Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Played good at South Carolina, and they ain't got no players, right?
Right.
So let's say whatever his problem was. Let's say that's not an issue. Maybe he grew out of it. Maybe he got help. I need to get some help, right? Maybe
we know
he got rid of his problems, right? No, I yo-yo diet. That's not good for you. So I'm on the middle of going up. Now I got to go the other way. So. But if you know anything about football, the guy is a better football player than anybody who's had the chance to play that position for the Saints since our boy Drew Brees.
I agree.
And there's a chance that he saves the team from going down the toilet at some point this year. And look, I'll pull for Carr, but when I'm telling you, the dude has lost the city.
He's lost it.
He lost it. So anyway,
I love it. I mean, we're going to the opener in a couple of weeks. But let's shift to golf, and I want to start. I've got a few questions for you, and you supplied one as well. This is just going to be kind of a random stream of consciousness, but we have, as you know from doing these with me, like you've been coming on the radio with me back when I was on PGA Tour, XM Radio. I mean, I'm going to say 14, 15 years ago. I would say other than Hank Johnson and Wayne Flint, you've been on with me more than any other teacher.
I appreciate it. You know me,
I know.
I'm showing up.
And you, like I said too, the other thing too is you're always prepared, and we always have good chats and good talk. One question, I go back to, my affinity and affection for the mentor I had, right? And one time he said to me, Brian, and this was in a bar at the PGA show when he had gotten the Teacher of the Year thing. And he said, you need to decide whether you want to be a good teacher or a great teacher. Okay. And I thought that was really interesting. Okay. I thought I'd pose that to you. Like, what do you think the difference between a good and a great teacher is, and what makes that person?
Well, let's just say this. If you were telling me, Brian, you have to take everybody who's the top 500. There's a lot of debate about number 1 and 1 through 50, but the top 500 is pretty easy. It's just resume. If you told me to categorize all these people into 10 categories, category 1 is exceptional, and 10 is, pretty good. They're in the top 500, right? But just pretty good. That first guy, let me tell you the first thing that would be on the list. Yeah, obviously, you got to be able to help the person in front of you. That exceptional teacher would be able to go do a golf school with anybody tomorrow if the phone rang. They go do Andy Plummer school tomorrow, get on a plane and go do that thing that Aikens had with all the old top 100 guys. Go across the country and do a Morad school with some Morad guy. Go do a old school Golf Digest thing with Jim Flick and Bob Toski, and then go stand in an arrange with me and Jacobs at one of our schools and not embarrass yourself. That's what an exceptional teacher could teach anything. Could. Might say they will. Lombardi, they always said he could beat you with his 11 or your 11, and he could run your offense if you wanted to. That's the way I feel like the very, very best guy. There's not a whole bunch of them. There hadn't been 24 of those people in our lifetimes. Now, the next set is you can help everybody. You maybe only have your own way to do it. You can't go do a golfing machine school one day and a Ganka school the next day, but you 100% can help a little old lady, a kid that doesn't want to be there with a snotty nose, that's got a handshake like a fish at 11 years old, and a tour player with Jim Furyk swing, and then the next guy swings at it like Gene Littler. That's what you should be able to do. I don't think there's that many of those people either, especially currently, because everybody has sort of figured out, not everybody, but a lot of people have figured out that to be called great by some other people, you've got to have like a shtick and you've got to perfect it. And that shtick partially has nothing to do with teaching. Nothing. What's
it got to do with?
Well, you create a character. So let's just say if I was starting from the day, right off the top of my head, and nobody had ever heard of me, like it was an alternate universe, Brian, everything else is the same, but you didn't exist. But here you are. Okay, let's see. I would figure all the things that cost me, right? Opinions, braggadociousness, whatever. And I would go the opposite way in all them. I'd go Zig Ziglar, I'd create this, right? I'd go get a little phony degree someplace. I'd probably wear glasses. I look totally you put some glasses on me and a little white Oxford shirt, I'll fool somebody. I'll probably go to some speech therapist and learn not to dem these and those and get rid of the walls.
No, don't do that shit. Don't do that, Brian.
I was told not to do that once by a $700 an hour marketing guy. But I'm just saying, I'm just making me as an example, right? Not to pick on anybody. You create this character, you write it down on a piece of paper, and it's partially come up with because you think that's going to sell and it's going to work. And then you play that part every day. You wake up and you put the mask on and off you go. Michael Jacobs was once asked, and how much, we're best friends and he's one of the most knowledgeable guys in the whole world.
Agree.
Somebody asked him if you only had, I don't know how many it was, but you couldn't go buy a TrackMan with it. Like it was 10 grand or some number like that. What would you spend it on? If you wanted to, go as far as you could in the business? He said acting classes first. Just think about that. So there's a lot of that in this business. Nobody wants to talk about it, but because I talk about it, it's like I'm controversial. And so I don't give a damn about the controversial stuff anymore. I'm just saying there are some known people that have done it and it's worked. So why would you want to spend time being able to teach at Andy Plummer School tomorrow and Jim Flick School the next day? Why would you waste any time on that? Well, the reason I wasted time on knowing what everybody's teaching is because I thought that would make me a better teacher. And I was stupid to think that somebody would figure that out on their own and like help me. But that is not what happened. As a matter of fact, I think it's been a detriment to anybody else helping me is my ability to actually back up my big mouth. But between great and good is just like, it might even be like magic dust. Like, you know, the right thing to say and when to say it and when not to.
That's what I think. Yeah.
That's it, right? Because it's a people business. And you can have the same person. I got a lady right now taking like basically 2 lessons a week. She's a human. She ain't no robot. She's going to come here one day and she's not going to feel as good as she did the day before. Or she's going to be sad because one of her friends got sick or something. You got to be able to pivot to something else right away. You got to be on a tour range, right? And the guy's playing this week and he's got nothing. You've got to, like, first of all, you can't look like you're panicking. And then second of all, you've got to come up with something out of thin air, which may not even be anything different than that person ever did. And then you got to put it in and say, that's it, and like sell it and then go out and win. So you could be a really good teacher and know a whole bunch of stuff and actually be able to help people. But the great thing is a little bit of magic you have to be able to be great.
I agree. That's one of my favorite answers you've ever given. And I want to backtrack for a second. One thing that, like, I'm not being braggadocious. I'm just proud of myself. Like, I'm just saying, like, I've obviously worked with and traveled a bunch of tours, but I still really love and do teach people of all skill levels all day. Like, I went up with Morgan Hale, who's worked with me forever, to her place in Long Island this week.
So I saw
it was really cool. Like, I'd never been to the Creek Club. What a really cool place. I hadn't been to that many places on Long Island, right? But they were just regular golfers. And we did the stuff that we do, but then we took them out on the golf course, how to hit shots and play shots and do that stuff, right? And I think that's still important as a teacher and as a coach and as a person, is to still be able to connect with and teach people of all skill levels. And I know in our business, you and I talk, when we talk a lot of times, we'll talk about the business side of what's going on, a lot of it stuff. And, I know there's a lot of money and stuff and fame and teaching tour players. And there's guys that get on that side and that's all they do. But I think part of being really good at what we do is still being able to connect with, if an 18 handicap walked up to you on the range or a 22 handicap, they would still get a hell of a golf lesson and leave knowing how to hit it better, right? And I'm not always sure, and I don't mean this negative, but I'm not always sure that some of those other people could do that.
I'm sure they couldn't. But some, I mean, there's a
Right.
lot of good, right? Because it is the only professional coaching. I still don't, rather teaching, but people like to use the word coaching, so let's use it. Mm-hmm. It's the only professional league that has coaches who really were never even to use a football analogy, had a winning record with a 10-year-old A team at Rebel Park, but they're teaching in the NFL.
Right. Right.
It's the only, because to me, the reason this happens, and I have a lot of people in golf media that I'm friends with, and probably there's some people in golf media that, would throw a dart at me if it had a little poison on it. But I'm friends with a lot of them, and I can tell
Brandel isn't going to have a clear shot at you. This is kind of like the secret service.
No. I think Brandel is not that bad at this next thing. He's bad at some things, and he's good at some things too. No, he is. But this industry is not covered at all. As like, if you gave a kid who was at Northwestern or some school where there's some Syracuse, I don't know, there's some famous journalism schools. So you say, okay, we got a master's in journalism program at Colgate or whatever. And what we're going to do is, I heard this podcast where this little Italian guy with a New Orleans accent said, nobody is covering the golf instruction business. Okay. So, hey, that's what we're going to do for our senior project. There's only 4 people in this class. Y'all are going to cover separately, like 4 different news organizations, golf instruction. They would be doing articles, Tony, and asking questions that hadn't been asked in the 42 years I've been doing this. Just they're not even in their first job yet. They would go, well, Mr. Fabersham, tour teacher, how did you get your start? How did you get your first tour player? When did you decide you wanted to be a teacher? What's your golf background? Wouldn't this be like, I don't know, I have a journalism minor. Wouldn't this be the first? Nobody's doing it. And I'm going to tell you why they're not doing it. In their defense, there's some very capable people out there that could easily do it. They're trying to keep their job this week, man. The golf media business is on very, very shady. It's balancing on the head of a pin. Now, in Chambly's case, he could easily do it. And he's not getting fired tomorrow. I mean, that whole network may go down the toilet, but he's not going to get kicked out on his own. And it would be nice if the Golf Channel went off the air. I would throw a party. That would be a good party too. You come right out here, he's all crawfish and bar shrimp you want, right in the driveway, right down from the studio in the sky.
I'll be there. Will you invite me?
What a joke. What a joke, right? I did my resume the other day, the PGA, the section awards. I didn't win either one of them. I was up for the Horton Smith. I don't care what they say. I'm still going to call it the Horton Smith and Teacher of the Year. And
what do they call the Horton Smith now?
Huh? Oh,
what do they call
development?
Oh.
I don't like that. Let me tell you why. It was named after a person. Okay. You have a problem with him? Name it after another person. I think it ought to be the Mike Hebron Award, right?
Agree.
Because he invented the Teaching Summit and he's done a lot of stuff since then. And he's a decorated guy and he's still completely all there mentally, best I know of, probably about as much as me. And there's nothing named after him. I say, and like right now, me and him argue a lot online. So
all the time.
The point is, he earned it. Call it that. But anyway, I was shocked at how many countries I've talked at. Like more than I have like a little blurb on my website. I was off by like 4 countries. I've been keynote speaker at 4 different countries' national teaching summits. So it's like, what people don't understand is, wouldn't you want to cover all of that? How can there not have been one paragraph written about Jacobs 3D not stuffed into another article? Matt Rudy is a really good friend of both of ours. I heard your podcast with him on his, getting out of the deal.
Did you like it? Did you like the podcast?
I did a great job. I didn't listen to the whole thing because I was skipping around on the plane. I don't know if my name got mentioned, probably didn't. But at the end of the day, he mentioned Jacobs 3D like in one little passing article. How can there not have been an article on it? How can there not have ever been any coverage of the Alpha War? How can there not have been any real coverage of him and Patty, since Patty's so popular? You see, I can tell you why. Is it a threat to people? Yes. Will they get phone calls if they do it? Yes, yes, yes. So nobody wants the phone calls, and nobody wants their friends that they might threaten. That's how it's done. But let me just tell you, one day somebody's going to do it, because the opportunity to cover this in golf instruction industry is just sitting there. And I think people will be way more curious than you think. Remember what happened with the Monday qualifier guy, Ryan French? Nobody cares about Monday qualifiers. They were wrong. They are all admit they were wrong. That guy's got 100,000 followers if he's got one, and it's because he's covering something that wasn't covered, and people are actually interested in people that I teach and you teach playing in 4-spotters, because sometimes that's the only way they can get in, right?
We did this pro work. You may have seen it, but I do these episodes on YouTube that we film where it's me and somebody I work with or whatever. And down the road, I want to do some stuff with other teachers. I really want to come to New Orleans and do one with you where we just take a Joe Schmo, right? And we did this one with this guy.
Or Gene Schmo.
Right, whatever. Right. Whoever, some schmo, right? Yeah. But anyways,
or a pronoun schmo.
We're probably gonna have, we'll have some. I mean, we'll get into this later, but we did this with a guy I'd met who's a tarpon fishing guy, just a regular guy off a boat in Key West, hadn't played in 13 years, And me and a couple of buddies went down, taught him golf, and he taught us to tarpon fish. And we put the two together, and we've had 160,000 views in 2 weeks.
That's awesome.
Right? And people love seeing that. I agree 1,000%. I think people want to see authentic. I don't think they want to see stage produced stuff or a guy that's always scripted and right. And you know, the hair's perfect and all that. I mean, I think they want to see real stuff with real golfers. And it's okay sometimes if, like, in the middle of that, we told him to do something and he shanked it, right? It's okay. That's real golf, right? You know?
I just did, I was the keynote speaker last week at the North Florida. I didn't realize Orlando was North Florida, but it is. North Florida Teaching Summit. It was at the AMG Club, you know, Weber Granado's indoor place. And so we had a faults and fixes part where everybody who was on this panel, about 5 of us, got to take a shot at somebody. And you know, they're all club pros. And guy gets up there and starts just heel topping it. I wasn't panicking. I wasn't quitting. But I mean, like, if I'd have been the only person, I'd still be there. I would have come up with something. Because how many times in your whole life of teaching has that happened with somebody that can break 80? A bunch. Like, I'd say 100 times, 100 different times, somebody who's broken 80 lost the ability, as Big Don Delavesso used to say, to make contact with the ball and get it airborne. It's like, and now you find out if you can teach. There's people watching, and the person is missing the ball, whiffing it almost. I had to fix it. I had to come up with something.
What'd you come up with?
Really close stance.
Really?
Put that left leg in the way, so he swung across it instead of away from it, which is never talked about. Like, every golf book I got here that's written before 1950 talks about hitting up against a firm left side. Now we know what that is, right? It's internally rotating into that left hip, and there's going to be a certain ground reaction force that's going to be a part of that, and that's what aids the person in getting the energy out to the ball and squaring the club up. And the old timers knew it because they could sense it. And that went away. People are trying to get so damn open right now that, you know, I don't think anybody thinks you're supposed to swing across your left leg. It's kind of funny. No. But
question. If you were heading up, this was your question. I thought this was interesting. I saw Nick Chertok posted something along these lines on social media, but it was about what the PGA had done for people coming up trying to teach. There was a question. And so you posed the question. If you were heading up a worldwide organization, association, you know, of hundreds or thousands of golf teachers, what would be your first major initiative?
Because I've thought about starting one, you know, so I've thought about this. So this is a little no. I think that
would the headquarters be in New Orleans?
It needs to be a worldwide association. And if I got a couple of people that, you know, have a problem with me right now, if I could just smooth those guys over, I could have 1,000 people in 6 months. I think the first thing that has to be done is there's been no, like, real code of ethics enforced. There's
no code of ethics.
I have a lot of things I like about the PGA of America. Like I said at the Teaching Summit last week in Florida, every single time happens at least 10 times a year. Somebody who's getting in or already been in the teaching business asked me, should I get in the PGA? You know, Como's not in, Harmon's not in. Doesn't seem like they have to be in. You're not a PGA member? See, there you go. Tony's not in, right? I tell them, how long are you going to be in the business? 5 minutes? It's 10 grand, do it, right? But at the end of the day, the code of ethics has not been enforced with teachers. Might have been once upon a time you showed up and played somebody's golf course as a guest without telling them, hey, Tony, I'm a PGA pro from Mobile. I'm playing with Mr. Fabersham tomorrow. Is that okay? That's what you're supposed to do. You could get a code of ethics violation for that. There are people that have absolutely come at me 100 miles an hour who are PGA members. They haven't even got a slap on the wrist. So there needs to be some decorum, for crying out loud. It can't be the Wild West. There's enough people that wouldn't be in the association that you would, you'd have to have like a little council, like a little referee council that would just have a dispute and try to get the people together. And because you know what happens if the dispute isn't mediated early on, it becomes a great giant divide. And that's the first thing. The second thing I would do is say, if you people had joined for $20 a year, because that's how much I would charge at first, have anything that you think is worthwhile presenting to this group, which a lot of it would be like this, we're presenting to however many people are watching us, let's do it. Don't wait for a panel of people to go, let's see, Tony hadn't talked yet. Let's give Tony. The hell with that. Everybody who wants to talk gets a shot. There's 365 days in a year, and Zoom I'm already paying for it. So if I'm running something like that, everybody who thinks they have something to add, you gotta, I tried a Big Ten approach once and it didn't work because it's just like when I played music, you can see my drums back there.
I see it. I saw that when we came on.
If you play for about 5 or 6 people, like at a party at your house, that's pretty good. Works out fine. You get about 20 people, it's an odd, like you really don't want to play for 20 people. You're better off playing for 5. Then 50. It's like a little small club, nightclub, and there's only 50 people in there. That works. In other words, it's like residence. It happens at every so many. And I think when I tried my Big Ten approach, the beginning of golf science, I tried to get all the scientists to get it. Everybody had their own self-interest, and it went astray. But if you had 1,000 people, the tent you would have to put over everybody would be so big it would even catch the strays. But I don't think there's a teaching organization right now. The PGA of America is a different kind of organization. It was never intended for people who were like Tony and Brian. It was more or less set up for the club pro world.
Right. I think what we do has grown past where they are. And I get people the same as you. And I always tell them, if you want to work at a club and be at a club and you don't know which direction you're going in the golf, is 100% you need to join the PGA. Now, if you've been teaching a while and you're successful and and that's all you're going to do and you're not a PGA member, then I don't know that it's as big a deal.
Well, I'm thinking, I mean, not to interrupt, but yeah. This is a big piece of the whole PGA or non-PGA, or the whole last, basically my whole career and your whole career, because we've been doing this similarly, for a long time. The number one issue with this business getting going was facility. Mm-hmm. I knew a guy, no names, who was in a market smaller than New Orleans. Okay. So Mobile size, but not Mobile. And he was at a club and he really was a very popular teacher. So one of the members had a range and hired him, and he booked solid. He had so many lessons, he took a day off in the middle of the week to go play golf because he loved to gamble. And then the road came in like they do with driving ranges. And they said, sorry, Mr. Fabersham, you can't teach here anymore. We love you dearly, but the government just gave me $4 million. I'm selling my range. So he went and knocked on all 5 or 6 possible other places in that town, and they told him to go jump in a creek. Only business in the world like that. Only one. Well, guess what? That kid got out. And he might be the guy that's helping Tiger right now, or Rory, change golf history, because he was an up-and-comer now, okay? Guess what? Now he go in some strip mall, put this damn studio just exactly like this in there and tell everybody to go themselves. And if he can teach, they're going to be lining up outside the doors of that place. It doesn't matter if it's in a horse barn or a maintenance barn. You can put a teaching facility You put $1 million teaching facility in a place just like this, which exists all over this country. It's a big old country. Drive to Orlando a couple times, and like I know you've done it. And so that has changed. That hadn't made a dent yet. But when I'm telling you, you're gonna have some cat or girl cat come out of this. Nobody would let me teach at their place. I couldn't get a good deal. And I just opened one of these things and I became world famous, which is great because I'd have done it, I don't know, 3 or 4 years after I started teaching. If the technology would have been there,
I said to the group I was with, the president of the club I was with, we were talking, and when I went to Mobile, the club president and the director of golf at that time, they said to me, "Oh man, like our club." They wanted to hire me, but they said, our club doesn't take lessons. They're just not a lesson taking club. And I remember calling Hank and I asked him, and he said, well, people aren't going to pay to take bad golf lessons. And they won't at a club take bad golf lessons, but they'll pay to take good golf lessons. Right. And I told this at the club I was at, talking about Morgan, because she's busier, crazy busy, they huge turnout. And I said, like, that's everybody always blames when there's a club doesn't take lessons or there's not a lot of lessons. They say that club just doesn't take lessons. Those people in that town don't take lessons. Well, they don't take lessons because nobody's giving them a lesson worth the shit that makes them want to get better. Do you agree with that?
More than anything we've talked about yet. At the end of the day,
other than Spencer Rattler,
missing Rattler, he can play. The simple deal is, if you take 20 random teachers, you got a map of the United States right there, and I got 20 dots. I just go big, 20. And we go to the nearest teacher, we got one decent one. That's why they got places that don't take lessons. And why? Because people are just that bad at teaching? No, because there's no really good path to learn basic stuff that everybody who's teaching ought to know and don't. And
Agreed.
there's a big possibility for somebody there, but you can't wait for the other organizations to do it, really, because they're not interested, right? They're interested in TV contracts, and I don't blame them.
I don't blame them, but that's just not doing anything to develop teachers, right? And develop people that further what we do.
Those guys, they got those two guys, John Woolley and Ryan Kim. The one guy's a PGA member over there, one's not. They have everybody that they think that they can draw a crowd for, and those people are listening like their life depends on it. I've never presented to a group of people like that before in my life. And what's interesting is I never taught a bunch of people that are golf teachers who could swing the club that good. Like, I gave everybody a 5-minute lesson, and everybody in 5 minutes or 10 could do exactly what I was saying, at least a couple swings. It's like, damn. So I was at dinner after one of these top 100 things in Phoenix, and one of the gals that was with us, I had met her a few times, but she was a tour player, now she's a teacher. She said, I know why. I said, well, I can't wait to hear this. She says, because when they're 8 years old in Korea, they test them for everything. You, smart in math, scientist. You, good tumbler, gymnastics. You could swing a stick. Baseball, you swing a stick with a face better. You golf. So these people that are 28 years old that were in these classes that I did for a week, they were handpicked 20 years before that and got about a 17-year scholarship to try to become the next, person winning the Ladies British Open. And if they didn't make it, they're sitting in the class with me. No wonder they could do anything I said. So those countries ain't farting around while we're sitting here going, should you do this? Should you get in the PGA? Should the PGA have 2 separate deals? Should blah, 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 blah. These guys are just getting everybody who knows something that they think they can draw a crowd to over there, and they take all the information like this, and let me just tell you, they're kicking out in that department. And that's not even their PGA. That's their just two guys who are good promoters. So it can be done here too, right? All those people that are flying over there, they live here mostly. So it's there. It's there. And I hope I get to be a part of it because I love to help people. And, you know, I get just as much of a kick, Tony, out of helping somebody who never hit a draw, as I do helping a teacher get somebody to hit a draw that never could hit a draw. It's the same fun for me.
Well, two things. I've bounced this off you before. It's always been a goal of mine since having the radio and then the podcast and whatever shit we do. I would like to do a teaching summit that's more interactive. I would like to host a dew sweeper teaching summit for young teachers where they could come and you could watch people teach, but you could go sit and talk with the people, have lunch with the people that are in what you're wanting to do, right? And it not just be, and then not bashing on things, but not just be the speech by the people who are promoted by something that's putting money into the summit, right? Like, but let's get and I think we also could go back to we could go back and ask some of the older guys that have been great to come back and sit and talk, right? What's wrong with doing those?
None of us are getting out of here live, so yeah. I don't want to go to the mausoleum somewhere with absolutely all this stuck in my head and I didn't share it with anybody. It's the whole idea to pass this on and leave not only the business but the world better than you came.
Right.
And I because right now, let me just tell you, you can go on here live and you can go to any of these channels and it's like, are they even serious with this stuff? Mm-hmm. I mean, why all of a sudden has getting the club in a normal, got this little junior club here, in a normal top of the backswing position like this, why is all of a sudden everything got to be like that?
Right.
Why is Jack Nicklaus says, I want to keep the club between my arms? Why is that son? Why is toe up at first parallel suddenly? Me and Jacobs might be the only two idiots teaching that. And I don't know if you do or not, but I mean, like, I'm not saying I wouldn't teach somebody to have the face kind of a little down, but
to me, it depends on the guy, right? Or the girl, right?
But like to think that nobody is saying in a perfect world, the toe would be up when they taught that for 150 years. How did that suddenly, because the way that the internet thing kind of works is, it seems like what some of these cats have tapped into is human beings, for some unknown reason, want to do things that they're not capable of.
That's interesting. I like that.
The crap out of it. Like, okay, I got some people who lag the crap out of it, and some of them could play and some of them can't. And since I don't teach that to anybody now who doesn't really, really, really need it, it's like they probably learned it organically. But the lay down move, you can go on and on and on, just, not shifting your weight, not moving your left hip off the line it started on. Just, to me, it's just like basic stuff. I'll tell people, Tony, in a lesson that the club ought to swivel up the plane like this. And they'll go, nobody ever told me that before. I said, are you kidding me? The tee's kind of pointing somewhere near where the ball is. And what? No, everybody's got the club like this. I said, maybe at the finish, man, but things got.
That's old school there now. I love it though.
But I mean, like, there's a lot of people who come take lessons, and I put them in an ordinary halfway to the finish position, and they tell me nobody has ever told them that was okay. Mm-hmm. I can release the club. That's why they call it a release, because you can release it. It would be different if all this other stuff was actually helping people, but and I know we get some of the cast-offs from these, I would say obtuse, but just like extreme, body divers. They got a lot of people they teaching people.
Here we go.
Diving their upper body at the ball. I'm thinking to myself, I don't see that at a tour event. What are you talking about? I flip on the channel and they're playing in the tournament, and I saw normal swings coming down the stretch, right? Keegan Bradley bends over a lot, but he makes a regular old swing at it. And the guy who was playing with Adam Scott makes a regular old swing at it. And I don't see anybody like super laying the club down or super laying it off or diving their upper body or getting 500 degrees open at impact. And I know those people all have full books and they're making probably more money than me. And everybody says, well, if it was so bad, why? But that doesn't mean anything. That it really doesn't mean anything until we had a teach off and we could find out. Show up with a bunch of people that just want to learn, and we'll watch those people do it their way. And you can watch me do it my way. And I'll watch Tony do some shots out, teach some people after I get tired and I got a quick kickstart in my hand. And that sounds like your idea. Like, okay, if you think that this is better, we got 5 people lined up right here, show them. But I saw one of those people do that live once to 2 pretty good players.
I know what you're talking about.
Not good, man. And what's interesting is I asked a lot of people, what did you think of that lesson? And I thought it was a C-, to be honest with you. And they gave it way worse scores than that. I was horrified. I went, gee, I didn't think it was that bad. And did you ever really hear anything out in Twitterverse about it?
No.
Let me just tell you, that's how you can tell that person, whoever that person is not really a threat to anybody. Because if I would have laid 2 goose eggs like that, it would have been front damn page news, right? So at the end of the day, if you've got something, it's probably going to work on a lot of people and people are going to know about it. The only thing that's throwing all of that off, because that's what happens out there in the field, right? Only thing that's throwing all that off is tour instruction. Because at the end of the day, the poor tour players, they don't know who to call. You can't ask somebody who finished right outside this last thing, right, to get into the playoffs, whatever they want to call it, right? There's a few of them, they're pretty big names. And they've tried pretty much, or they've watched pretty much the regular 25 people that go to 25 or more tournaments a year. If you told them you have to pick somebody not out here right now, you might ask them the cure for a very bad infectious disease. They might be able to give you the formula right off the top of their head. They have no idea. If I was running the tour, I would have a teaching summit for the tour.
Interesting.
In other words, like, hey, look, here's a bunch of people that aren't teaching on tour, and we got a bunch of wannabe, mini tour players that are volunteering, and you could just walk the range there and see, kind of like that guy over there with the blonde hair, a big tall dude teaching that guy with the funny looking swing. He got that guy hitting the ball good. He was hooking the crap out of it 5 minutes ago. Maybe I get his card. Because right now it's a revolving door. I don't think like Rory wants to do an overall. He doesn't know who to call. He really doesn't. Rory. He can afford us. He does not know who to call. Just think about it.
I do think having
tomorrow, if Brian Kelly leaves LSU tomorrow, you and I are just fans. I'm not making you an LSU fan, sorry, but
I'm not. I'm a Notre Dame fan. Are you a Brian Kelly fan?
When Dennis Allen leaves the Saints, they can call you and me. We got 5 names for him, but Rory McIlroy doesn't know who to call for a swing makeover, which he thinks he needs. I think he needs a backswing makeover. I don't like it. Hey, Rory, if you're listening, all this lifting early, why are you doing it? Because you're forcing the club back there late, and the club's doing something very strange, late backswing and early downswing on your bad shots. You ever thought about making like a normal backswing? I'll send you some video of like people in the Hall of Fame. Nobody's doing what you're doing, bro. You're the only one. And you're talented, but you're not that talented because you're not the number 1 player in the world. So I think you've been getting some bad advice.
Ryan, you're the best. And you
agree with me on that backswing. It's phony.
I do. Yeah.
Nobody does that backswing unless they were taught by different people, maybe, pieces of that, and it just morphed into that. And that's how people like, how did this guy, like Rory's got so much talent, it doesn't even matter. But the people that are just like
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah, 100%. I know where you're going with this. Yeah.
And they go like, how could this guy be a top, like say 15, 20 player in the world? And now he's in the television booth. What happened? They all didn't get hurt. They all say he got hurt. But at the end of the day, no, for 5 minutes, they couldn't really beat anybody. And then they quit. And then somebody said, hey, we'll give you a TV job, and then they'll go, right? And I wasn't picking on any of the young guys now, because, I mean, you could say that about Smiley, because you taught Smiley, so right?
Yeah, I mean, he posted something the other day. I've given him a couple lessons, and I think like
he looked pretty decent, but I'm not talking about somebody like Smiley who won. Did he won one term or he won two?
Won a tour event.
No, but I'm talking about like Ian Baker Finch. Like I'm talking about people that were major winners.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Ben Curtis, still young. How old is Ben Curtis now? He's in his 40s.
Maybe upper 40s, mid to upper 40s, probably.
Pecan. Like, there's a reason for this stuff. Is that the information is such a little small group of people providing the information over the since the troubleshooter era. I call them the trouble, because remember that show on the Golf Channel, the troubleshoot, when Ledbetter and Haney and McLean and all those guys, and that those guys when we were 25, 30 years old, that were the tour teachers, when they suddenly weren't the tour teachers anymore and they flipped into this new group, they hadn't cycled through this new group very much at all, and the expiration dates on a lot of that stuff right now. I mean, they got a few of those guys. They talk about you could go teach at 5 different golf schools. I know some tour players that could probably go teach at 5 of those teachers' golf schools. Well, because if they've worked with all 5 of them.
Brian, you're the best. Thanks for doing this late this evening. Also, guaranteed, I'm going to text this week. We're going to put a date together. We're going to film one of those pro works in New Orleans. Maybe do it around a day before a Saints game or something when we're coming over and have some fun.
There was no internet. There was no questions off the internet.
I don't know. No, I don't think so. No question. We'll get some for sure, and I'll send them along. But you're the best. Always a great guest. Been a great friend for we've been doing this too long. We've been doing a long time on this.
At the end of the day, Tony, let's hope for 20 more good ones out of both of us.
That's the truth. Amen on that. Looking forward to it. See you soon, brother.